Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson. All right, so I'm gonna be going into this lesson was inspired by the elder Malcolm. I was watching his lesson rather, and he was going into when so-called black people, the Israelites rule the world. And I've done lessons on this before, but I thought this would be a good lesson to go back into because it's new brothers and sisters that are waking up. This information is totally new to them. They have no clue of this information, this knowledge. And what you're looking at is the coat of arms in Italy. This is when the so-called blacks, which were the Israelites, ruled what you know today as Europe. They renamed it Europe so they can create a false narrative. But Asia, that's when what you know today as Europe, they ruled all that and beyond the whole known world. So let's get into the other Malcolm video real quick. 1 second. Okay. And I want you to go, subscribe to his channel. The name of his channel Salakia is GMS Maccabean Spirit 144. Put it into the YouTube search engine, go subscribe. So I'm going to play some of this video, then I'm going to get deep into this lesson.
That I've been sitting on for a while. Let me find these videos. Yeah, here they are. Fucking Esau, man. Alright. And, yeah. So I'm going to play these 3 videos. So we'll start with this one. And then I'll just finish with some scriptures.
And you wonder why you never hear talk of the Moors. You never hear them say in history when you're going to high school in the American educational system, they don't teach you that black people ruled the world for 800 years as Moors in Asia, Spain, Portugal, North, South America. I mean, the entire globe. They advanced the cultural civilization of humanity. This is never taught to so-called black people in America, only that they were slaves. Everything they were taught.
Whoa. Why do they teach you was only slaves? So they can put that indoctrination, plant that seed in your head that you was nobody. That's a part of the propaganda machine and them mind controlling you. Because if you don't think you was ever anything, you're not going to know who you are today and how great of a people you are. You're going to be a bunch of degenerate drug dealers, you know what I'm saying? So on and so forth. I can go down. It's a long list. You're going to be baby, look, let me stay on subject. Let's get more into this.
Is to denigrate the imagery and the cultural moral fiber of the people. But black people ruled the world under the title as Moors for 800 years and 2,000 years before that. And they are also the educators and the founding fathers of all advanced cultural technology and understanding.
Yeah, the college and the universities were built by them too.
They are actually responsible for
Oxford and Cambridge.
The so-called Europeans we see in modern times, the white man. And this is the history that's been left out and that has been kept from the so-called black man and woman in America. And that is done under the pretense and under the guise that they must never know the truth or imagine themselves being anything other than what they've already been told they are.
Yeah, so that's the reason why they put so much money and production behind the slave movies. Like, what's that popular movie, 12 Years a Slave? And then Roots, and then, so many different movies that we can go into to show the so-called black man in particular, because that's the head tribe of the nation of Israel, Judah, which will be Yahweh, Benjamin and Levi. But Judah is the head tribe. Show them as slaves so they can never rise up to any greatness, and they can only be hood rats and gangsters and drug dealers and pimps, whores, and etc. Rappers. You go down the list. So let's go here. Matter of fact, I wanted to get into this scripture, but that's going to be too much. I'm trying to keep it simple for the new brothers and sisters. So I'm going to be going through a collage of these pictures. And matter of fact, if I can find my other book, well, I have one of them. This book here is called The Negro question, part 4, the missing link. And in this book, it is showing you that the King James was a so-called black man, and his son is in here. Matter of fact, let me go here. Let me go to this page. And I've showed these books before. Salakia. Let me go to this page here. Okay. So in this book, if you want to pick it up, it's in page. This was actually the author was Lee Cummins. Salakia. And I'm on page 8 of this book. I'm going to start up. It says, I know this image of a so-called black King James can be a little confusing because of your Western education. But the truth is that it is known by the rich and the elite in the world. So the Edomites that's among the elite, these Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Warburgs, they know the truth, but they'll never tell you the truth because they control the Western education system. I'm going to be doing a lesson, Lord willing, tomorrow, going into all this stuff with the education system, how they control everything. It says that was the reason I paraded all the English historians and professors before you, and I got into the bowels of this book. It says I had to get into your mind ready to receive the truth. King James came from a long line of so-called black Scottish Stuart kings. It says 343 years of rulership in Scotland. It says the Stuarts not only ruled in Scotland, they ruled France, Spain, Ireland, England, Britain, Wales. King James was able to rule all these lands because all these people were so-called black descent. These were Israelites, which they call them Africans in the new redefinition of the word. They'll call them Moors. And when you go into the word Moor, when it actually means is somebody that's so-called black. It's not a religion. It just means so-called black. So let's go through these pictures. And you're going to see kings and rulers, so on and so forth. In the other book, I got to find out when I got so many books around on Salakia. This other book. And brothers that's been in the truth for a while, you know, brothers already know his nature knows no color line. And the author is J.A. Rogers. So I'm going to be going through some of the history in this book, coming up lessons, and showing you. But today I'm going to show you these images, right? These are coats of arms of these noble families, these rulers, and very wealthy, rich, so-called black people that rule all Europe and the known world. Today, what you know is Europe. Remember, the word Europe is a new concept. So I'm going to scroll through these coats of arms, and they ruled in Germany, they ruled in Italy, Scotland, Ireland. Just keep going down the list. Right here. These are kings, coats of arms, right? And you're not going to never learn anything like this in modern day Western education because it's controlled by so-called white people. And in particular, the J people control the education system. So that's why they're going to keep pushing the slave narrative on you. Look at this. This is the Russian icon. The Russian icons is another very important piece of information that shows all the saints, all the Israelites, because the saints are the Israelites. It ain't the new redefinition of what the Catholic Church created a saint to be. And when you really go deep into the Roman Catholic Church, it really was created by wicked so-called black men, Jakes, because you had Constantine was a so-called black man. And this is where all the confusion comes in at. When you watch these devil's documentaries, when you go into Constantine and the so-called Dark Ages, they show all these images as so-called white people. When you Google King James, he's going to come up as a so-called white man in their world. But when you go into the true history and go to the archives, he's a so-called black man. It's a museum. Now, I haven't went over this information in a while. It's a museum, I think, in England that shows King James as a so-called black man in their archives. They know this. Right here. So these are all the saints. The people in the Bible were also called black people. These are the Israelites, and what they did into modern time in the Renaissance around the 15th to 16th century. What they did is took all those dark images and made them so-called white people, and that's where the confusion comes in at. So right here, these the families of names of Negro origin in Holland, Portuguese, and German. These all so-called black people ruled the whole known world. It says Negroes and coats of arms of noble families. It says French at the bottom, Dutch, Belgian families with Negro names. All these were rulers and kings and princes and noble families and rich men and wealthy, so on and so forth. This is the lineage that we come from. But they're going to keep pushing that you nothing but a slave because they want to keep you on that low vibrational level so you can keep acting like fools. It says French, Italian, Spanish, Polish families. And again, I have done lessons going into this book right here, Nature Knows No Color Line, and this a heavy book. And I guess I got to get your spirit is telling me to go back and do more lessons in this book because it's still much to learn for you new brothers and sisters. And even if you've been in the truth for a minute, you still can learn. Right here, this is 1421 to 1443, 1412 to 1421. It says at the bottom, note the Negroes lore with crowns and bishop mitres. You know, look at this. Okay, this is right here. The Negro in coats of arms and noble families. This is the British. When you go into the word British, Britain goes back into covenant. And when you go into the Hebrew word, that means the Israelites, the covenant people. That's why they was called Britain, not the redefinition of what you consider a British person today. These are the Edomites that took over and stole the names and ethnicities of people. It says British families, top left, the Moors of Yorkshire, including Sir Thomas More. More mean, like somebody that's so-called black. And you see this, you can screenshot all this. Crowns and rulers, these wasn't slaves. And the so-called white man has controlled that narrative, but we breaking that stronghold down. It says families of names of Negro origin. I think I already hit this one. In Central European, you see it. These all, we're going to come back to this glory. In the kingdom, it's going to be on this level. We're going to rule the whole world and beyond. And you're going to see the wealth, the might, and to make your jaw drop. Right? That's why we have been brought down very low to be risen back up. Right here. And you see it. And a lot of you brothers come from regal, royal family lines. But these devils, what they did is switched everything and pushed this whitewashing history to distort the truth and lie to you so you can think you nobody. We came here to set the record straight. Right here. It's so vast, so much to cover. It'll take us a lifetime to go through all this history. This is in so-called Europe, I think this Saint Maurice, right here in this picture, he's a Israelite, and they know who you are. That's why they was referring to a lot of these as saints, showing you that the Israelites were so-called black people. And it goes on and on. There's so much to cover. I have to chop the lessons up to go into more of the history. But these were noble, rich, wealthy kings, rulers, men of status, as they call high value men in today's terminology. We're going to go back to that. We're just in the lowest state right now. But they don't change who we are and the people that we descend from. We're a royal people. And I'm just showing you these images because it goes on and on. I'm just not going to have enough time. And this one, Jake, the so-called black men, ruled in the so-called dark ages. There's a lot of history that you need to know about. And it goes on and on and on. You see? And Like I said, I'm going to do another lesson going into this. Hopefully this lesson was edifying. Call Allah Yahweh. Bahashim. You have a Shah. Bahashim. Kodash. Shalom.